All right, then we'll begin our recording and we'll get started with our workshop. And the entire purpose of this workshop is to focus on infusing your classroom with AI activities. This workshop was originally called our AI Play Day, and at Pikes Peak State College, we put together a community of practice focused on AI and the training needs that we have. And the Play Day is what emerged because we all kept saying we want something practical where we play with the tools and we can actually see what they do. We didn't want a philosophical discussion on AI and where it might go. We wanted some more of the concrete. So that's how this was born. And of course, with this evolution of artificial intelligence tools, this has continued to grow into the workshop that it is today. And even a couple months from now, I believe this will look a little bit different. But the important part of it is that the one thing that hasn't changed is the foundation and the framework for using AI tools well to help create these activities. So that is just my brief introduction of how we put this together and how we built it. But here are the nuts and bolts of what we're doing today. So the idea is that you will actually have practical advice, things that work well. And I encourage everyone to keep using the chat window as you did in the webinar, if you were there earlier, and even as you are doing this right now. So keep those ideas flowing. They are so helpful. Not only is it the advice that's gathered from my CETL that's been put into this workshop, but we get to share and further that knowledge. I also like when we can share that real world experience. So it's not just an activity that I got from the book Teaching with AI, but all of the activities in here I have tried in the classroom. I have had to go back and polish them, try them again, and they're ones that I've already run this semester. So know that these are all live examples. And then the third part is I really want you to be able to leave with activities to try. So with each part that I bring up, I'll be sharing a Google Doc with you. When you get that link and you open it up, you will see that there are step-by-step instructions in there. So if there's a student component to pair with it, you will already have that handout. But then there's also some of these where you are doing your own thing as you set up this activity. Our game plan for today. As we're going to start out with some tips for AI activities. These will sound a little bit familiar if you joined my keynote earlier, but if not, I'm going to do a review of them. And also, because we're in a regular session, if you have questions, you can bring those up. Then we'll get into 4 activities that I have for you here today. Live action role play, or LARPing, choose your own adventure activities, a research activity, and how to create a matching game. A lot of these activities and ideas that I have used books such as Gail Taylor Rice's Hitting Pause book. And that has been helpful to have a variety of activity ideas. Student engagement techniques from Elizabeth Barkley is another one that's really helpful. It just has a lot of those activity ideas that I can take and grow. Are we ready to get started? Okay. Excellent. Very, very good. So we'll start out with some of these tips that I have for AI activities, and these are practical that I have learned along the way. When I created my AI guide, that made a huge difference in teaching these tools to students. I will not lie to you whatsoever. If you think of me back in spring of 2023 trying to talk about AI tools with my students, I had stumbled over them. I was still testing them out myself, and I did not have clear guidance. So quickly, I got to work doing my own homework, testing them, learning more about them to build that full guide. The next part is to make sure we are offering students training with both the prompts that we provided them and an outline of how to approach an AI bot, but then also really scaffolding the AI tool introduction. So not throwing too much at students all at once. So with that AI guide, you got a quick peek at this a little bit earlier. I built this right into my learning management system. I make sure that students can reference it at any time. And I tell them that the prompts that I've provided for you are perfectly fine to use in class. So you're worried about the ethical part of it, you're worried about plagiarism. Those are worries to have when using AI tools. Here are some boundaries, here are some guardrails. So I make sure that I go over that with students so they know what they can use. I also really enjoy making these prompts in my guide specific to my class. So as you start to play with AI tools more, you find the ones that you most want to use, start to build your own prompts and see what work best for your course learning outcomes. Something else that I do, and you saw some of these slides a little bit earlier, is giving them that specific training. How do you feel about AI? What's your comfort level? But then also I will talk to them about what AI is. And Dr. Nick Jackson explains this really well, just breaking down the learning machines and even some of the evolution that we've seen in AI. I'll go to Ethan Mullick for. And his blog is available and open. I'll also drop that in the chat a little bit later, so you can learn more about ways to talk to students about AI tools. And then, Georgia, great question. No links have been shared yet, so you are perfectly fine. The next part of this too is when you are developing prompts for your classes and you're making them specific, continue to use some of the ones that can be replicated in multiple classes. But something I want to bring up here is when I'm creating a public speaking coach that I want to share with students, it's a prompt that I've created once. I got this from Dr. Albee, made it appropriate for my class. I will bring this up during class time, and I will have students pop open an AI tool of their choice or try a new one, and then I'll have them put that in there and begin to use it. So this is just an example of my approach to bring that guide to life and to create prompts that are relevant to each of the courses that you teach. Keep that AI prompts for teaching spellbook open as you do this. Scotty breaks it down again, has a lot of those infographics that are extraordinarily helpful. And any AI book that you have will help just to guide you as you're putting these together. And then if you really get stuck, one good way that you could start to use that AI tool is head over to your favorite AI tool and ask it, how can I put this together? What are some thoughts I should keep in mind as I build this prompt? Help me to touch up this prompt. Help me to make this prompt even stronger. So I see a couple of great questions that we have here, and I'm so glad that I'm seeing some of the raised digital hands. I'm going to start with the chat, and Elsa Diaz, you have asked, do you ask students to help you create a prompt in class? You know, I haven't done that, and I love that idea, so I'm going to steal it. Usually in these last couple of semesters, I've been teaching students how to get the prompts in there, but I bet students have great prompts. That's a really good question.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what I'd like to see. Since I'm so bad at this, I'd like to see what they do to
Absolutely.
see. Okay,
Yep,
okay.
absolutely.
Is that okay to do? Like, I mean, would that be an ethical, what you would consider an ethical use?
I would consider that an ethical use because it's you working with your students to co-create meaning around AI tools and how they're using it. It's a great idea. And Linda, you have your digital hand up.
Yes, you said be sure and keep something open, and I'm sorry I missed what it was
Oh,
that we should be keeping open. And the
Linda,
page before the current screen, I think had a link in it or something, and I missed it.
I just want you to pause there, hold on to that. Everything you need today, I will walk you through.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. And then I also saw that great question. I keep throwing out all these names and name dropping. So I have also put those directly in the chat window here. I have turned to a lot of sources for great AI information, but some of the ones that I'm sharing here have been my absolute favorite. So now we have our assistants. We know that we can start to use AI to help us to create prompts. We can use it to build a guide in our classroom. And in the future, I do see us creating more bots that are relevant to our class. So having a bot built into your D2L or your Canvas or whatnot that's been trained on the information you've given it. So start to think too about what kind of bots that you would want to train for your students to use. Now, here are some actual activities that we can try out and bring to our students. And this first one is live action role play. And if you haven't heard of this before, this is also known as LARP or LARPing. And it is a wonderful way to help students get into the shoes of something that they're creating, to get them into thinking more critically about what they will be doing in the future. So I love the live action role play because it's almost as active as you can get in the classroom, and our AI tools create this scenario that will react to students in real time, which I've really appreciated about it. So I could go on and on about LARPing in the classroom and the benefits of that, but what I want to introduce you to is this email etiquette activity that I've been using. This one is specifically used in my organizational communication course, and this is after a section that we have on how to handle tricky emails, how to properly use an email format, subject lines, all of the good stuff that we want students to know. And what I found is that students not only like to play with the prompt that they were given, but they will also use different AI tools to see what the different chains are. And it leaves a lot of room for reflection on learning. So in this one, I'm thinking of one of my favorite quotes from educator John Dewey that says that we don't learn from doing, we don't just learn from our experiences, but we learn from reflecting on our experiences. And we can use AI tools to build those experiences in the classroom. So here's what I'm going to do. So if you are looking for these handouts and whatnot, I'm going to be doing this little by little, but you are going to see a Google Doc that is dropped off for you here. And I am just going over to it and grabbing the link. That way you have this and you can easily share this with your students as well. So I'm going to copy the link there, and in our chat window, this will take you to that live action role play. In this document that will open for you, and I'm just going to pull this over. I see everyone getting in there right now. I've got an overview of what this is, just as a reminder, and especially if you're looking to bring this as a workshop in a box back to your own campus, you need to design your own training around this. You have these step-by-step instructions. What you also have in here, though, is parts of the LARP prompt and how I built it and things to keep in mind as you're building your own prompt. So for this one, I really emphasize what the bot needs to know before students begin this exercise. I just happen to have an open education resource that we use for this class, so I can tell ChatGPT or Claude AI to read the whole thing. If you don't have that, you might think about your lesson plan or the learning outcomes to plug in there. The next part of this is I'm telling it how it should act and think. And for this one, I absolutely love Star Wars. So I have students emailing Darth Vader, and they are trying to settle a customer service issue with Darth Vader. So that makes it just a little tricky for them. And in this last part, I have the actual prompt for the first email. And you can see, you can go in and change up the type of client that they're working with. You can add in some of the barriers that they have to work through. They can also go in and change it up after they've tried it the first time. So thinking back to Elsa Diaz's point about, well, have students create their own prompts, you can have them start to work with this and change it up. Here is the actual activity that I will put into my course learning management system. And this has been helpful for students to have. So it's not just me giving them the handout during class or whatnot, but they actually have it on their devices and can copy and paste this prompt that they have. So I'll put this prompt over in the chat window. If you're looking for it there as well, it won't let me do it because it's 33 words over. Let me do it in 2 parts. So there's the first part, and there's that second part. And that is what I give to all students to plug into a tool of their choice to turn it into that role play environment. I am now navigating back over to my Boodle box, and I'm going into the student activity that we have here. And you can see that anytime I'm working with students, I just have them plug this prompt in just as I've done right now. And if you are following along, feel free to watch my screen. If you're trying this on your own, pop open AI tool of your choice, or you could, of course, just try a couple of different ones. I always like to do that. But here, I just want you to see what this looks like live. So it is fed in the prompt. It fed in the second part of it. It didn't feed in the first part. So this is why we test quite a bit. Let me get the whole thing here. I realized I had just copied that second part. So I got that first part, and I've got the type of customer. And in here, anything that I need students to rename, I could do here. So I want it to know that I am Princess Leia, or I could say that I am Ahsoka. Students can put in their own name. They can put in a different name. So if you're trying this right now, you could go ahead and send it over. And ChatGPT now knows that it should be acting as a customer. It should be disgruntled about an invoice. You can see that this is already starting to pop up and it's adding details on its own. And then the student would go in and start to form their own response to it. And it is keeping an eye on how well they are using the email techniques from my OER. And this was such a fun activity to run in class. I had students talking about, well, Darth Vader was very happy with me, or Darth Vader was not happy with me. Darth Vader seemed satisfied with my solution or did not. You can also see this is one that I ran through ChatGPT, and it's got this straightforward email here. I keep telling you to play with different bots because if I go into Claude, that is the more creative style of bot, it will come up with even more details. So students can even try this in a couple of different ways. And you can see how different it looks. And suddenly, my students are getting experience with practicing their email skills. They are bringing the lecture to life. It's not just me talking to them about email etiquette, but they get to practice it. And what I noticed last semester is when students were emailing me, they were using this etiquette more so than I've seen ever. So it was great to see them actually having that practice and bringing it to life. So that is the first activity that I have for you, and you've got those step-by-step instructions. You'll also notice that at the end of the document too, I have them put in a reflection piece. So I have them say, and let me go back over to that. Tell me how I did, where can I grow, what else can I do? And then here's where that learning comes to life. So they didn't just participate in the live action role play exercise, but they actually go back and reflect on what the bot created for them. What I also found is students were using ChatGPT and were able to share their discussions with me. A couple could not, but it was neat to be able to go in there and see what the discussion looked like and how they worked on their email. So it's just a neat way to bring it to life and try it out. I went to AI and I asked it for a couple of other examples that they can use. And this is something that we worked on throughout the semester so they could keep going in and trying out those email skills, especially with tricky customers. So now that you've seen this one and you've had a chance to try it out, thumbs up, thumbs in the middle, thumbs down. What do you think? Is this something you're going to bring to life in the classroom? Okay. All right, excellent. And especially if it's relevant to your discipline, take full advantage of it. Georgia has a great question in here. Is Katie, do you do this in the online classroom as well? And Georgia, I have not had a chance to teach this particular course online just because of my teaching schedule, but I do run these style of activities in an online course as well. So it's very easy to tell students, you're going to go through this email etiquette activity, take those discussion questions and actually have them respond to one another. You could even have them get the initial email and they have to practice responding to each other. So I think there's definitely that application in the online session as well. All right, excellent. And Ken, you've got a question.
Hi, thanks. Real quick, it looks like you were using 3 different AI bots for that activity. Claude, ChatGPT, and Boodlebox. Could you explain that real quick, or am I just...
Absolutely. Boodlebox just happens to have all of these bots in one. So I am able to just practice them all at the same time. When I'm in the classroom with students, because they're not in Boodlebox, I'll actually bring them each up individually. This just happens to be one that our campus is testing, and it's got a variety of bots that it just happens to use. Again, I am not here to sell Boodlebox, but boy, it has been my favorite tool. Excellent question. All right, so now we know how to introduce live action role play into our classroom. The second thing that we're going to do is a choose your own adventure activity. As someone who grew up in the late 80s and the 90s, choose your own adventure books were absolutely my favorite. They were a great way to take a book and make it more interactive and kinesthetic. And what I found is that AI tools are really great at creating those text-based adventure games, giving students options that they can bring to life. And I can create these scenarios for whatever I'm teaching. So perhaps I do want students to put themselves into the shoes of an advertising agency, or I want students to put themselves into the shoes of a leader. And now they can go through this text-based adventure game to see what kind of answers they can come up with. So this is one that really brings out that kinesthetic piece because it's storytelling. Students get to figure out the direction that they want to take, but our AI tools just make this easier than ever. So here is how we're going to try this out. Just as I did a little bit earlier, I'm going to give you a link to the specific Google document. So here is the Choose Your Own Adventure. There you go. And what that will open up for you is, let me pull this over here so you can see it, is this advertising agency exercise that I like to use in my popular culture course. So this is specifically for the popular culture and advertising piece. And instead of just standing up there and talking about Edward Bernays and talking about the scope and impact of advertising on us today, I pair that lecture and break it up into little parts where students can bring this to life with this choose your own adventure. As with our other document, I have this set up so that you can see how to build that specific prompt. So when you're making this for your own class, you can see the steps that are taken to put it together, as well as to create the feedback prompt. And then down here are the step-by-step instructions that I give to students. So this is what I specifically put into the D2L shell for them to follow. And now you fully have this. Please use it, take advantage of it. And of course, you can go in and change up these discussion questions as well to make them more relevant to your discipline. So this one has just been one of those dreams that I've always had for the classroom, is how fascinating would it be to be able to have a choose your own adventure that's directly connected to your course. If you are on your own AI tool, go ahead and head over to it and plug in the prompt that you have here. If you're following along, I'm just going to show you what this looks like. And currently I'm on the Claude AI bot. So this is the more creative bot that I have. And when I enter that in, I'm telling it is this text-based adventure game. It's going to help me to learn more about the thought process behind creating advertisements. And this is going to immediately set up a game where students have to create their own advertisement, and they have to keep in mind representation. And here, after it has put up this initial scenario and the options that they have, then a student can go in and select any number. And you've taught the bot that it is a part of this game. And so here it goes in and it starts to give them more scenarios. You can test this in other bots so you can see what it looks like in ChatGPT or Gemini. I like to test it in a couple of different ones just because I know students might use other tools. And then as with the other exercise that I have, let me go back to this. I want it to reflect on the key aspects of what I chose and what I'm learning. And this will give a quick summary of, here's how you did, here's what I thought. And I like to tell students that this is your chance to look at it, see if you agree with it, where do you disagree based on what you're learning in the class, where can you grow from this? Then what do you think overall about the approaches that we take to advertising? So those are the prompts that we have specifically to plug in there to set up this role play activity, or I'm sorry, this choose your own adventure activity. It's a bit of role playing too, but it really connects to those learning outcomes, but adds that activity during class time. So I'm tricking students into learning how to use AI tools, but they're also connecting to the learning outcomes. I am going back to our chat window, and I'm so glad that we've got a lot of activity over here. So I think I left off with, and I want to make sure I don't miss anything. I'm going to Fred's comment on, is the college providing the AI account access for students, or students using the limited free access for the various AI solutions? For my classrooms, I've been running these activities with the free accounts that students have. I am very hopeful that our institution will get a subscription for students to use, because you can see with that Boodle box, it can do so much more. But this activity still works really well in the free versions of ChatGPT, of Claude, of anything else that they might want to use. I'm looking down too. So yes, we could definitely use this in the online environment, getting help with current assignments. And then I see this here. Our IT is looking at Boodlebox. We have an AI group that's testing it out. We give feedback, and that's just how Pikes Peak has approached taking it bit by bit. We're testing it with students, with educators, see if they're comfortable with it, and then we'll move forward on considering licenses. So since this is on the recording, I will just say, please, 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 can we get Boodlebox? It's my absolute favorite. And so I've got this other comment here. Katie, can you talk a little bit about how you encourage the students to think and reflect with the students after the activity? I'm hearing from faculty that is one of their biggest concerns, is that using AI will limit the think and reflect aspect of writing on their own. Misty, not only is this such a great question, but I'm so glad that you brought this up. This goes back to using AI to assist you. AI cannot learn for you. It is unable to do that. But AI can give you those moments of reflection to step back and look at that conversation or interaction as a whole. This is why I've purposefully started to put in those discussion questions, and I will have students first write their answers to these discussion questions in the classroom, and then we'll have an open discussion with them. So we bring these up and share ideas with one another. And it is, in my opinion, created a richer discussion about the concepts and theories that we're talking about. I have students saying, oh, I see where I was kind of rude with that line that I put there, or I see that I didn't say sincerely or best. I just kind of left the email as it was. And I didn't have as many of those discussions before I started using this activity. Misty, does that help to answer that question? Okay. Excellent. And then I'm also seeing from Amanda, I ask asynchronous students to respond to one another, and they will 110% use AI for that. Hello, classmate, here is my weirdly positive response. I have a compliment for you. I'm sure you will crush everything. When you have students playing games and when you have them bringing this to life and they have specific instructions and ways to respond to one another, that discourages that use of AI. And one of the issues I see with that reliance on AI tools is that students are hyper-focused on grades, and they're hyper-focused on, I have to get that A, I just have to get through this class. Maybe I get a C just so I can get my degree. But there's not that focus on, I'm here to learn. And I think if we use these AI tools paired with the critical thought process, paired with reflection questions that are meaningful, we get them connected back to learning and that value of learning. All right, also ask, can we create a discussion for online students where they create the discussion prompts in AI and provide each other where the information comes from in the chapter? They can then rate each other based on the prompt. Elsa, that's a brilliant idea. That is the purpose of what we're doing here. I am happy to steal that idea. That's great. And that really flips the way, yeah, it's good. It flips the way that we're using AI tools. They're not just search engines. They're not just something to generate an essay. These are active spaces that support us in our learning. So I've got a great question. Will you make this presentation available to participants? 100%. It is in the Aventi app, and you can email me anytime. I'll send it up. And then when you refer to a bot, are you just referring to the AI language model? I am referring to the actual bots that I've created. So I'm going to take you back to my Boodle box, and you'll see that this bot is actually trained. It's a chat, but it is trained to be my teaching assistant. This chat is trained to help me with student activities. This one is for teaching technique ideas. Boodlebox helped me to understand fully training a bot though. So think of bot as that discussion as well. So if I go over to my bots here, this is my rhetoric bot. And this one will only help me as a public speaking coach based on my course. It only knows my course learning outcomes. It only knows my textbook. So I use bot and chat interchangeably. I do that a lot in the classroom to have students think about these bots that are assisting them. Oh, and is there information on how to train a bot? Stay tuned. This is what I'm doing next to start to build this into my classes. By the end of this semester with BoodleBox, all of my classes will have a bot specifically put into the D2L shell for them. And I'm really excited to do more with that and talk about training bots. So we have got some great questions here, but, and I just clicked on the wrong thing. We're going to go into our third activity, and this is a research activity that I've developed that I've actually used in all of my courses at this point in getting students used to the research process. I know that there's several of us coming from a variety of institutions, but especially at Pikes Peak State College, we were a community college, we're now a state college, but we have a lot of students who are getting in there and conducting research for the first time. They're learning how to use the library for the first time. They're coming across some of these articles for the first time. There's other students that I'm helping them to level up their research skills. And I have several of my students who are in discipline areas where they won't be creating as many research projects. But I still love to show my students, here's how you can use research to benefit you. So this is a process that I developed using a couple of different tools. So this is the moment where we're going to move away from BoodleBox. And my goal here, and I introduce this later in the semester because they've used ChatGPT, they've used Claude AI by this point. Now I want them to try some different tools. I want them to see how they don't always have to have the perfect prompt. They can talk to that robot in a couple of different ways to get what they're looking for. I also want them to see some of the more powerful things that AI is able to do now. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk through this next activity that I have, and this is all about creating oral citations. This is for my public speaking class, and what I did in the past is I would get up and talk about oral citations, and I would speak to the importance of them and why you need to support your work with your references, and then I'd say, okay, go, put that into your speech. And I was not getting the oral citations I was looking for. So I figured out that, first of all, I was talking way too much in my class. I was not actually teaching, and I needed to make this more hands-on. So I started up a speed dating activity where students would bring their research to class, and they would start speed dating and practicing speaking out that oral citation. But then what I found is that I wasn't getting sound research, and that I needed to back up just a little bit more and refresh and review ideas on finding those key research articles they could use in their speeches. And this one has been really helpful in getting me to do that. So if you are playing with your own bot and setting this up, just as I've done with these other ones, I am going to drop this link into the chat, and we're going to be using both Liner AI and Notebook LM. Let me copy that. Ooh. Too many screens open at the same time. There we go. And I am dropping this one into the chat window right now. And I'm going to show you a little bit of how this works. And using this two-step system has really helped students to, first of all, see what that research process is like and how to find articles and assess them. But then the second part is how to take an article apart and learn it through your own approach to learning, knowing that some of us can try to read through an article and get lost, but this gives some active ways for students to bring that article to life. So here is what you're going to do first. Let me figure out where it is. So we're going to head to Liner AI. So this is getliner.com. Kind of like the eyeliner that we use. I'm dropping this link into our chat window as well if you just need to click on it and get over to it. And Liner AI will do a general search of the web just to see what might be out there about your topic. It will also do more of a scholarly search using some of these databases where it can gain access to open access journals, or if a journal happens to have that available, it will share it with them. There are some journals that it will still pull up that have that paywall, but that's a great teaching moment where I can tell students, hey, that looks like it could be a good article. Now we go over to the library so that we can find this. And so if I go back to the prompts that we have, and Elsa, I'll get to your question in just a quick moment. I'm just going to show you. Oop, too many windows. I just totally lost this one that I built. Let me see. So Elsa's now is a great time to ask your questions while I find my lost Google Doc.
So how recent are these articles, or how recent is this thing? And I'll give you an example of what a nightmare I'm in right now in one of my classes.
Yeah.
Because we do not have up-to-date, like in our library or for students to do this research. So we have this great opportunity to study the fact that the United States is trying, I'm giving this as an example.
Okay.
I'm teaching international relations, and the United States currently has said that they can and possibly will use military to acquire or Greenland, right? So it's a great opportunity. Greenland is this territory of Denmark, and we want Greenland. Anyway, there's this great conversation. And it's a great place for me to teach students in international relations.
Mhm.
But finding articles that the students can have up to date in our library is nearly impossible because of paywalls.
Yeah.
And because of all these different things. So I created this great assignment with the theories, this and that, and yet I am not able to get up-to-date information. I mean, we are talking foreign policy, we are talking foreign affairs, we're talking anything that I can give them. Because I thought that our library would have these up-to-date resources, and apparently we don't. Will this provide me with that opportunity so I can give it to my students?
Try it out. I want us, just as we've been doing, to try the activity. And Elsa, I'd love for you to type in the chat what it comes up with and what you find. So try this process first and see what it finds. And that might be an area where I'm thinking back to Mike's and my conversation earlier. AI might not be the solution. We have to go elsewhere for it. But I like the activity that you have and how you're having students get into that research there. So we'll try this out and then see how it works for you. Yeah, Michelle, I agree. What an amazing and wonderful conversation. So here you have got step-by-step instructions on how to show students the way to walk through both of these tools. And it looks like Rocky just tested this. Their most recent source was January 2022. So some of these topics might bring up older sources. What I've found is I've really been using this to get students into the habits of looking for sources. I have also used this to help students get a sense of an organization they might want to apply to work for someday. So in here with general, I might put in here, give me an overview of, I'm going to go with Chipotle because it's almost lunchtime. And this is kind of how conversationally you can be with it. Just give me an overview of Chipotle's business model, conduct a SWOT analysis, and talk to me about their financial health. So this is just an example to show you what it looks like when you bring it up here. It will create this overview of the topic that you are examining. And then on the right side here, it will pull up articles related to it. So over here, it will give a Chicago-like style citation. And I love the interactivity of this because I can tell students, hey, if this is something that you want to summarize as part of your oral citation, or if this is something that you want to learn more about, you can now click on this and find the articles. And now you have some keywords. You have a place to get started. You do not have to log into our library and you have absolutely nothing. You're starting to build this research kit that you can use in your speeches or papers. What this will also do is this can become a thought space for students. So as they're reading through this, it will also provide them with some follow-up questions they can begin to ask. And it will help for specifically organizational communication. I want students to know how to use AI tools to figure out topics to bring up during a job interview, to understand what types of questions to ask, to figure out if that organization is a good fit for them. So that's one way that they can use it. Another way to use it as well is if they go over to that Scholar button. And one of the topics that I regularly get from students is, hey, I'm really interested in pet adoption. So you can say, show me an overview of pet adoption rates from 2020 to now. And we give it a minute to do its job. It starts to bring up some of these articles. A lot do come from the Semantic Scholar. If it does happen to find an article that's in our library, I've seen it linked directly to it, which I appreciate. But again, I'll also have students take these keywords and topics over to our library to start looking at it more so. In class, it was great to walk students through this process of here's your article. We're going to take some time to read it. Now put together your citation and let's practice it with that speed dating activity. But what students can also do later on, so let's say that we are going to, and I'm just going to choose one of these. I'll have them go to this, head over to the publisher and get a copy of the PDF itself. And I'm going to do the terrible thing and just accept absolutely all of those cookies. But you can see here, it gives them the article right there. I now go into the second part of this where I have students get into Notebook LM. Notebook LM is a tool that one of our strong AI individuals on campus, Dr. Dennis Natali, introduced me to, and I cannot thank him enough. Notebook LM will create an interactive space to bring your PDF to life. So it will let you feed text to it. You could upload a PDF directly to it. It will then create a chat based on that PDF. So here is a chat from one of the first articles that I have students reading in popular culture. It will also make a podcast. And so I won't play this now because I know it could be tricky here on Zoom. But what this does is this is a podcast based only on the article, information from the article, and it speaks to the students in a conversational tone. So especially for those who need to listen to it or those who want to ask, how does this apply to my major in communication? It has follow-up questions that they can ask, and I can make study guides, frequently asked questions, which students have told me they love the FAQs for the articles they've been reading, a briefing doc, and a timeline. With the interactive podcast that they have, they can also go in and ask questions, and it will answer questions, and it will only pull from that article, but students can interact with it live, which is really neat. So here, with this, I definitely want you to play with this tool, try it out. It is just one of those that has helped me to get students into that pattern of looking for their research articles, but also ways to learn from those research articles and bring them to life, both in their writing as well as their presentations. All right. Thumbs up, thumbs in the middle, thumbs down. What do you think? Is this something that would work for your classroom? Excellent. Okay. Perfect. Absolutely. Wonderful. All right. Here is one of the activities that has been one of my favorites for a pause during a lecture. I try never to lecture for the full hour and 15 minutes, or if I have a 2.5-hour class, I know I will lose students. So I'm always trying to break my lecture up with 3 pauses: an introductory pause, a mid-lecture pause, and a pause at the end of class. And those are always great moments to check on student learning. What is also wonderful about this, though, is a lot of the ideas that I have for pauses that I get from Gail Taylor Rice's Hitting Pause book is this creating a matching activity. Something where I introduce students to a concept or a theory, and then I create this matching activity where they have to actually bring it to life and see if they understand the terms. This I love because I can give students scenarios directly from their future industry. I really like to make sure that I can check in and get some live assessment on student learning. But then also you can run this any way you need to in your class. Maybe you do this with a little bit of competition. They do this in groups. They can even do this alone if they want to. Now, to show you just a little bit more of what I'm doing and how I'm approaching this, I think we are pros at this point, but I have those step-by-step instructions for you. I'm dropping those into our chat window right now. And this will take you into the process of creating a matching game. Now, this is one where I'm using an AI tool to create the matching scenarios for me. I don't have students going in and using this tool. This has just been really beneficial to make something that I can use. One of the topics that I have in organizational communication is a series of communication failures and what happens and what drives those times when we have miscommunication or misinformation and disinformation. And so here I've got the prompt fully built for you, but then also an example that you can plug into an AI tool of your choice. And then you'll also see down here, this is where I just plugged in the scenarios and my concepts, and then I can arrange this digitally. Perhaps I put this onto a digital whiteboard that students can use. Or I also like to do this the old-fashioned way, and I know my dean is here, and I'm not supposed to be printing too much, but sometimes I print this one so they can match it in class because it's a little bit more fun to do that. And what I really appreciate about this, and this is one of those aha moments where I said AI tools can help me to become a better teacher. They can help me to be creative during those weeks of the semester where my brain just isn't working the way I wish it would work. And so when you plug this one in here, you'll notice that kind of at the bottom of this, I have the matching game, kind of going all over the place, where I'm creating a version of the matching game for the students in my class. I am creating it based on their majors. I'm creating it based on their interests, and it will generate several different scenarios for me in each of those that I can set up. I don't have to sit here and try to figure out ways to connect these terms to architecture. If I can't find the architecture faculty to ask them, now I can do this real quickly. Or especially right before class, I say, oh, I forgot that part of it. I can use it. So here, I am just going to hit enter so you can see what this looks like. I'm using Claude, the more creative version of this. And I've had it, or I have it creating everything from construction management to Dungeons and Dragons. I have had this work with Jurassic Park before, so I will create a series of different scenarios. You can see that it's already getting to work and it's building that matching game for me. It has created my answer key so I can use this. And now I can go right back into the document that I have and I can start to plug this in. So they can match up the term on the left side to the scenario on the right side. They not only hear me talk about these concepts and terms, but they actively bring them up in class time. I have done this both as a competition. I have also done this where individuals just kind of do it casually. Timing it does make it a lot of fun. Students see if they can get a better time the second time around. So I'll have them get into groups, they match it, and then I'm like, okay, minute 20 or a minute and 20 seconds. Can you do that a little bit faster? So that's just one of the ways that I've been able to bring this matching game to life. So that is a way to use an AI tool that is not necessarily introducing students to it. It's you using it to help you create these activities. And this one, I will not lie, has been one of my favorites. All right, y'all, thumbs up, thumbs in the middle, thumbs down. What do you think? Will you give this a try? Okay. All right, excellent. That looks promising. Ken Jarvis, I have to give you a shout out for getting a link to that book. Hitting Pause is just one of those books I use regularly. And that is a book that has those good teaching tips and tricks. They're practical, they're hands-on. And then I can go over to my AI tool to help me to build these activities that connect course learning to what students are most interested in. that is an overview of several activities that you can try out in your classroom. And the step-by-step prompts are there for you to build on your own to try out. But hopefully, too, this gets that creativity going just to see a lot of the different ways that you can bring these activities to life and to try them out. As always, though, some of the reminders that I have for you is any CETL workshop, I always bring this up with our teaching community. Don't try to do everything. Don't take a look at all of these activities and say, I'm going to do it all in one semester, because it's not going to go well. But if you say, here's just one or two activities that I'm going to try, that gives you time to go through and fine tune the prompts, to update the instructions so that they are relevant for your students, to try them in different free versions of the tool, or if your institution has a license, try it in that version. It even gives you a chance to go to students and say, hey, what do you think of this prompt? Or what are some other things you might be interested in that you want to apply this concept or theory to? And then the other side of this is just feel free to modify it so it's appropriate for your teaching style. It should be created in your voice so that it's appropriate for your discipline and that it's really appropriate for the setting. Any of these activities could be modified to work online. They can work in person. They can even work in a high flex classroom, but test it before you run it. So at this time, before I get into some Q&A, hold on to those questions that you have. I would like to see, what do you plan to try? So now that we know we should only try one thing, we need to scaffold the tools that we introduce to students, and we're going to make sure it's relevant to our course. I just want you to take a moment to think and then add your answer to the chat window. While you're doing that, I'm going to be taking a peek for any questions I might have missed, and then I'll give a summary of what we're thinking of. Excellent. Perfect, perfect. So I'm seeing some good conversation happening. It looks like we're going to be trying a variety of these and bringing them to life. Please let me know how they go. I am katie.wheeler@pikespeak.edu, and I definitely want to hear how these activities are working for you and how you might have modified them. I'm now also going to backtrack a little bit because we've had some great questions in here. First about, is there a tutorial within Notebook LM? Just learned about this on Wednesday and really wanted to get started. And I am going to stop sharing for a quick moment and get back to my Notebook LM. What I'm doing on my side is I'm making sure that I share my sound so that you can hear the podcast part of it. But I'm going to share again. And can you give me a thumbs up if you see that Notebook LM that I was sharing earlier? Perfect. Excellent. So when I get to the main page of Notebook LM and it says to create new, this is where I start to add a source. And so I walk my students through this. I tell them, grab that PDF, that Google Doc, those Google Slides, website, YouTube, copy text, whatever it might be. I also went in and I checked the copyright law related to AI and uploading PDFs into a tool such as this. And it specifically states that if you are using this for education purposes, that is an appropriate use of this tool. So I always share that with students as well when I'm talking to them about why we can do this. After you upload your source and you get it in there, I'm just going back into my popular culture one. This is an article by Ray Brown. It is slightly more laid back, but it really gets students into thinking about high culture, low culture, popular culture, folk culture. So thinking about these different cultures we'll be talking about. The chat window is where students can enter in any questions that they have. They can bring up anything they want here. They can learn more about it as well. They can see, I clicked on this part where I've asked the student, how is this, or I've asked the bot, how is this relevant to my major? And it shows me exactly in the article where it found its answer. So it just helps students to bring that article to life. Y'all, I think I'm multitasking, so I'm just going to make sure I have shared my sound. This part of it, let me see. I think I just shipped the wrong thing. There we go. My other screen here. The podcast part of it, I absolutely adore because I do have some students who will regularly say, I'm behind on the readings or I don't do the reading. And I will take them
Welcome to the
straight
Deep Dive. Today we're diving into popular culture and how it's changing the way we think about culture as a whole.
It's certainly a hot topic these days.
It really is. And
So hopefully you heard that. Okay, excellent. And then the interactive mode. So I haven't paid for any of this. I have just been using it. I can play this again.
welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're
Oh, hey, welcome. What's up?
I've got a question about popular culture. Why is it relevant to my major in communication?
That's a fantastic question, and it really gets to the heart of what we're discussing.
we're so glad you brought that up because it's incredibly relevant for you.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, communication is all about how we make and share meaning.
And
I am a kinesthetic learner. I have to do something to be able to learn it. That is exactly what I'm looking for. I'm also very extroverted, so being able to talk to a bot and talk through the questions that I have, this brings that research to life in a way that I've never seen before. So that, I hope, answers that question about the Notebook LM, kind of gives you a quick overview of what you can use it for and how to set it up. And then definitely, if you look up YouTube videos or send me an email, I'm always happy to go over it again. But it's one of my favorite tools. So that's a really good question. I hope I answered that question. On the next one here, we have got a hand up from Linda.
Yes, thank you. I also put it in the chat. So what you've talked about, I mean, all of this is wonderful. I just wonder about, the accuracy or the hallucinations aspect, in terms of how that impacts um, the types of activities you've discussed, and the frequency, because, that's what I've heard a lot of cautions about, and I've mostly just used Chat GPT. But, the fact that stuff will come up totally inaccurate. And so I'm trying to understand, if that is true, how do you know that what you're creating is not going to have a lot of hallucinations?
I think that's a great question. So we hear about hallucinations with ChatGPT quite often. Individuals will use ChatGPT to search for information. And that's when you're telling a bot to look through websites and come up with an answer. And we don't always know the information it's been fed and where it's getting that information from. So that's where a bot could more easily hallucinate. A lot of these AI tools are behind paywalls so that you get less hallucinations because they've trained them in a different way. What I love about tools such as this Notebook LM is that once we've taught students, here are PDF articles to look for, research articles, here's the credibility standards that you need for that article. And now they are actually creating a notebook bot. They are the ones who are holding on to this bot for that information. So it's not going to hallucinate because it's only using the article that it's been fed. If you happen to have a class with an OER, that is an excellent opportunity to have students use the OER in Notebook LM because they will only pull from that. So that's kind of that difference there. If I just ask ChatGPT, what do you think of this article? It might not even reference the actual article, but anything that I build, I'm locking it in, I'm locking it out of those hallucinations. And I see that again. So what do you mean by hallucinate? It's literally the bot hallucinating. It is just pulling whatever answer it thinks you might be looking for. So I asked ChatGPT, what's 2 + 2? And it's like, well, it's 6, of course. And that's because it found that in a random article. Whereas some of the other bots that have paywalls ask 2 + 2, and it will give me 4. So I talk about that with my students about the limits and how much we can trust what that AI tool is producing. So at this time, we are right at 11:29. It looks like there are some other good questions in here. Okay, excellent. Y'all, if you cannot tell from my keynote and workshop this morning, I am absolutely passionate about AI tools. I love helping educators use these in the classroom. And My whole thing is to make sure that we have the practical tools we can use right away. I am very serious about letting me know how it goes for your discipline and sharing other ideas. I'll also collect a lot of the great ideas that we have from our chats, and I'll get them into a Google Doc that we'll share out to everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoy the rest of our sessions. We go into a much needed 30-minute lunch break. There's a virtual cafe if you want to hang out in the main session. And then we've got 2 more sessions this afternoon. Thank you, everyone.